Sit back, relax, and welcome to Reading Hours. Today's book is The Witcher, Baptism of Fire by Andrzej Sapkowski. Please let us know in the comments from where you are watching, or if there is a book you want us to summarize in future. The Witcher, Baptism of Fire is the fifth novel in the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski, following the tumultuous events of the Time of Contempt. As part of the epic Witcher Saga, this book is set against a backdrop of war, political intrigue, and a world on the brink of destruction. Geralt of Rivia, the mutated monster hunter at the heart of the series, embarks on a perilous journey that challenges his sense of morality and purpose. This installment shifts focus from the political machinations of the Northern Kingdoms to a more personal story of loss, redemption, and loyalty. As Geralt's companions struggle with their own destinies, the book's themes explore the costs of war, the meaning of friendship, and the enduring fight between fate and free will. Sapkowski's masterful world building, complex characters, and philosophical musings continue to captivate readers, cementing Baptism of Fire as a critical chapter in the Witcher Saga. Now, let us dive into the world of Baptism of Fire, where danger lurks around every corner, and Geralt faces battles not only against monsters, but also within himself. The Witcher, Baptism of Fire begins in the aftermath of the Time of Contempt, where Geralt of Rivia finds himself recovering from a catastrophic series of events. The world around him is in turmoil. War rages across the Northern Kingdoms. Political alliances have shattered, and the land itself is soaked in blood and uncertainty. Geralt's heart is heavy with the burden of loss. His beloved Yennefer is lost, seemingly forever, and his adopted daughter, Ciri, is nowhere to be found. Her disappearance leaves a chasm in Geralt's life, one that even his stoic, seemingly unshakable demeanor cannot ignore. Yet, despite his inner chaos, there is one thing that Geralt knows for certain: he must find Ciri. Geralt, the Witcher, a mutated monster hunter bound by the ancient codes of his kind, has always lived in the margins of society. He has never been one to fully embrace human emotion, and yet Ciri has changed him in ways he cannot deny. She is the key to his existence, the link to his humanity. The bond they share is more than a paternal one. It is the result of fate, magic, and the weaving of their destinies. Her disappearance marks not just the loss of a child, but a loss of purpose. It is a wound that cannot heal, and it is one that sends Geralt on a journey fraught with danger, personal conflict, and hard choices. As Geralt sets out on his quest to find Ciri, his journey takes him into the heart of a land on the brink of destruction. The Northern Kingdoms are embroiled in an unrelenting war with the Nilfgaardian Empire, which continues to press its advantage with ruthless efficiency. The political landscape is in disarray, and every step Geralt takes through this war-torn world only reveals how fragile the hopes of the Northern Kingdoms truly are. But Geralt has little concern for the politics that drive the war. He is focused solely on finding Ciri. The stakes, however, are not so simple, for the conflict that rages around him will inevitably affect his journey in ways he cannot yet foresee. In his quest, Geralt is not alone. He is joined by a group of disparate characters, each of whom brings their own struggles, motives, and complexities to the table. The first of these is Milva, a sharp-eyed archer who has survived the brutalities of war and is now a fierce warrior in her own right. Milva's presence is an odd but necessary addition to Geralt's journey. Her talents as a tracker and survivalist make her an invaluable companion, but her backstory is a painful one, tied to the horrors of war and loss. She carries the weight of her own personal demons, and Geralt, ever the outsider, is both intrigued and reluctant to learn more about her past. Milva's participation in the journey is not born out of altruism, but necessity. She seeks to protect her own life and find her place in a world that has stripped her of everything. Then there is Zoltan Chive, a dwarf who is as strong in spirit as he is in body. Zoltan's loyalty to his friends is unwavering, and though he is a fierce warrior, he is also a man of honor, one who values his companions above all else. His presence brings a touch of humor and lightness to the otherwise grim atmosphere of the group. And yet, like Milva, Zoltan has a deep understanding of the costs of war. He has witnessed the destruction it brings to both the land and the people who inhabit it. Zoltan's motivations, while not as immediate as Geralt's, are rooted in a desire to see justice done, and to find a sense of belonging in a world that seems bent on destroying everything he holds dear. Together, these characters form a small but tight-knit band, united by a singular goal: to find Ciri. Yet, even as they make their way across the war-ravaged land, the threat of death is ever present. Their travels are marked by ambushes, skirmishes, and the ever-looming specter of the Nilfgaardian forces, who seem to be just as determined to eliminate Geralt and his companions as they are to conquer the northern kingdoms. But as much as Geralt is driven by the need to find Ciri, his journey also forces him to confront something far deeper: his own sense of self. Throughout Baptism of Fire, Geralt struggles with his identity. As a witcher, he has always been taught to remain neutral, to distance himself from the politics and conflicts of the world around him. But in this novel, Geralt's neutrality is tested in ways it never has been before. He finds himself caught between forces much larger than himself, from the power-hungry politicians to the ruthless Nilfgaardian Empire. Each step of the journey forces Geralt to question his place in the world. Can he remain neutral in a world that is so deeply divided? Does he even want to? His inner turmoil, often buried beneath his gruff exterior, becomes more apparent with each passing day. As the group continues their journey, they encounter a series of challenges that push their physical and emotional limits. The war, the landscape, and even the weather seem intent on defeating them. Every choice they make, every person they meet, carries weight. Geralt, despite his gruff demeanor, is deeply affected by the suffering he witnesses, even if he does not always show it. He is, after all, only human, despite his mutations, despite the monster-slaying persona he has crafted for himself. The world may see him as a monster hunter, but the truth is far more complicated. Geralt is a man searching for meaning, for redemption, and above all, for the girl he has promised to protect. Baptism of Fire is not just a tale of adventure. It is a deep exploration of loss, loyalty, and self-discovery. Geralt's journey, while outwardly a quest to find Ciri, is also one of personal reckoning. The world he navigates is not one of black and white morality, but one where the lines between good and evil are blurred. And survival often comes at a steep cost. Through his encounters with Milva, Zoltan, and others, Geralt is forced to confront his own limitations, and perhaps for the first time, to consider the possibility that he may not be the hero he always thought he was. The chapter ends not with the resolution of his quest, but with a deepening of the mystery surrounding Ciri, and the ever-present question of what Geralt is willing to sacrifice to protect her. As the journey progresses, it becomes clear that nothing, not even the Witcher's skill with a sword, will be enough to prepare him for the trials that lie ahead. The journey continues as Geralt, Milva, Zoltan, and their companions press forward through the war-torn land in search of Ciri. With each step they take, the brutality of the world they navigate becomes more apparent. The constant threat of violence looms over them, and their mission, finding Ciri, seems to grow more difficult with every passing day. The landscape itself is a reflection of the chaos engulfing the northern kingdoms. Villages are abandoned, entire towns burned to the ground, and the once beautiful forests scarred by battles. It is a world that has been consumed by conflict, where survival is the only goal, and morality is often a luxury that cannot be afforded. Geralt's resolve remains unshaken, but the road ahead is fraught with dangers, both external and internal. As the Witcher moves forward, he becomes increasingly aware of the toll that the journey is taking on him and his companions. Despite his usual sense of detachment, the pain of losing Ciri weighs heavily on him. The search for the girl is no longer just a mission. It has become a symbol of Geralt's internal struggle. He is constantly reminded of his own vulnerability, his dependence on the people around him, and the emotional ties that bind him to his past. Milva, too, is carrying her own burdens. Her past is one of deep loss and sorrow, and it is clear that she is not just fighting to survive, but to overcome the ghosts of her own history. Milva's character is one of quiet strength, but beneath that exterior lies a person who has suffered greatly. Her survival instincts are razor sharp, but it is her emotional scars that define her journey. She has a deep loyalty to Geralt and is willing to risk everything to help him find Ciri. But her growing affection for Geralt complicates things. She is not just a warrior. She is a woman who longs for connection, for meaning in a world that seems determined to strip everything away. Zoltan, ever the loyal companion, continues to play an important role in the group. His unwavering loyalty to Geralt and his friends makes him an invaluable ally. But he is not without his own conflicts. Zoltan's experiences have shaped him into a man who values honor above all else. But even his sense of duty is tested as they face ever greater dangers. The presence of Zoltan adds a touch of humor and warmth to the group. But like Milva, his past is filled with personal loss. The war has left its mark on him, and the toll of battle weighs heavily on his shoulders. The trio's journey takes them through increasingly dangerous territory. They are hunted by both humans and monsters alike, and their path is fraught with obstacles. Along the way, Geralt is confronted by the harsh realities of the war. The land they traverse is not just a battleground for soldiers. It is a place where the innocent are caught in the crossfire. Villages are destroyed, families torn apart, and entire communities left to suffer in the wake of the conflict. Geralt, despite his outward indifference, cannot remain unaffected by the suffering he witnesses. His travels force him to question his role in a world that seems incapable of escaping the cycle of violence and destruction. At one point, the group encounters a band of Nilfgaardian soldiers, and Geralt's prowess in combat is once again put to the test. Despite his enhanced abilities as a witcher, the reality of war is something even he cannot avoid. Geralt is forced to fight for his life, but even in the midst of battle, his mind remains focused on Ciri. His every action is driven by the hope that she is still alive, that they are not too late to save her. But the more Geralt fights, the more it becomes clear that the world he once knew is changing in ways he cannot control. Throughout their journey, the group comes into contact with various factions, each with its own agenda. Some seek to take advantage of the chaos for personal gain, while others are simply trying to survive. Geralt and his companions are caught in the middle of this complex web of political intrigue and violence. It is a world where alliances shift on a whim, where loyalty is fleeting, and where trust is a luxury few can afford. Geralt's desire to remain neutral is increasingly tested as he is forced to make difficult choices. The line between right and wrong becomes blurred, and Geralt must confront the question of whether neutrality is truly an option in a world so broken by conflict. The narrative also delves deeper into the moral dilemmas that Geralt faces. He is a man who has been shaped by the world around him, a world that has shown him cruelty, deceit, and betrayal. But even as he is forced to navigate this morally complex landscape, he is also forced to confront his own personal demons. His relationships with Yennefer and Ciri are never far from his mind, and the pain of losing them continues to haunt him. The journey to find Ciri is not just a physical one. It is a journey of emotional discovery, one that forces Geralt to confront the very essence of who he is and what he stands for. The book also explores the themes of fate and destiny, which have always been central to Geralt's story. In the world of The Witcher, fate is not a force to be ignored. It is a powerful and often cruel force that weaves the lives of the characters together in ways they cannot understand or control. Geralt, like many others, is bound by the threads of destiny, and his quest to find Ciri is as much about accepting his role in the greater tapestry of the world as it is about finding the girl he loves. The choices Geralt makes along the way are not just about survival. They are about his place in a world that seems to be collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. As the story progresses, Geralt's internal struggle becomes more pronounced. He is a man who has always prided himself on his detachment, but the bonds he shares with his companions and with Ciri force him to confront the reality that he is not immune to the emotions that bind people together. The tension between his desire for emotional connection and his need for independence creates a compelling dynamic throughout the story. The Witcher is not just a solitary figure. It is a figure trapped in the web of relationships, responsibilities, and choices that define his existence. As Geralt and his companions move closer to their goal, the journey becomes less about finding Ciri and more about the deepening of Geralt's understanding of himself. In the world of The Witcher, the search for Ciri is as much a journey of self-discovery as it is a physical quest. And as they venture deeper into the heart of conflict, the stakes grow ever higher. The search for Ciri intensifies as Geralt and his companions continue to navigate the ravaged lands, each step taking them deeper into a world consumed by war and uncertainty. As they journey through this fractured reality, their personal struggles become more pronounced, revealing the emotional weight of their mission. The world they traverse is far from forgiving. It is a landscape marked by violence, betrayal, and loss. Yet, despite these hardships, the group presses on, driven by the singular purpose of finding Ciri, whose fate has become as mysterious as it is crucial to Geralt. In the midst of the chaos, Geralt's relationships with those around him evolve. Milva, the skilled archer, continues to serve as both a reliable ally and an emotional anchor for the group. Her stoic exterior hides the tumultuous emotions she battles daily, and the connection that has slowly developed between her and Geralt becomes a focal point of the journey. Milva's quiet strength complements Geralt's often solitary nature. Though Geralt's first instinct is to keep those he cares about at a distance, there is an undeniable bond forming between him and Milva. In a world where trust is rare and fleeting, their growing camaraderie becomes an anchor of sorts, a small light amidst the overwhelming darkness of the war. Meanwhile, Zoltan, the gruff yet lovable dwarf, provides much-needed moments of levity in an otherwise grim world. His presence brings a certain warmth to the group, a reminder that despite the brutality of their surroundings, there is still space for laughter, companionship, and loyalty. Zoltan is unyieldingly devoted to Geralt, and his loyalty is a constant source of support throughout their journey. Yet, even he is not immune to the toll the war has taken on those who live through it. His humor often masks deeper frustrations, and his experiences with the war have left him more cynical, more aware of the fine line between survival and destruction. As they travel together, Zoltan's sense of honor clashes with the increasingly morally ambiguous decisions that Geralt is forced to make. It is clear that no one is untouched by the war's brutality, not even those who wear their courage like armor. As the group moves forward, the external threats they face grow more dangerous. The land is teeming with monsters, human and otherwise, and Geralt, ever the Witcher, finds himself in constant battle with these creatures. His combat prowess is unparalleled, yet the monsters he faces are not just physical. The psychological toll of their encounters becomes more pronounced. Geralt's mind often drifts to Ciri, wondering where she is, what has become of her, and whether he will be too late to save her. The monsters are no longer simply threats to his life. They have become symbolic of the larger, more existential battles Geralt must fight within himself. His fear of failure haunts him, and the burden of responsibility grows heavier with every passing day. But the war is not only a battleground for Geralt and his companions, it is a war for the soul of the Northern Kingdoms. The conflict rages on in the background, a constant reminder that every action, every decision has larger consequences. The land is fractured, divided by politics, betrayal, and the shifting tides of war. The Nilfgaardian Empire continues its advance, and with each conquest, the world becomes more uncertain. Geralt, who has always strived to remain neutral, finds it increasingly difficult to avoid becoming embroiled in the political machinations surrounding him. Though his primary concern is Ciri, the world around him is changing, and those changes cannot be ignored. This internal conflict is one of the central themes of Baptism of Fire. Geralt has always prided himself on his ability to remain distant from the political and moral quagmires that consume others, But as he journeys further into the heart of conflict, he realizes that such detachment may no longer be an option. His role as a witcher is one of pragmatism. He is neither a hero nor a villain, but a man who does what needs to be done. However, as the stakes grow higher, the question of what needs to be done becomes less clear. The line between right and wrong becomes more difficult to discern, and Geralt must confront his own evolving sense of morality. As they move deeper into the war-torn territories, the group encounters a variety of individuals and factions, each with their own agenda, and each more than willing to use the chaos for their own gain. Some of these encounters are fleeting, while others have a more profound impact on the journey. One of the most significant moments occurs when Geralt's path intersects with a group of refugees fleeing the devastation caused by the war. The refugees, though destitute and broken, offer Geralt and his companions a glimpse into the human cost of the war. These people, who have lost everything, homes, families, hope, serve as a stark reminder of the cruelty of the world they live in. In a moment of rare vulnerability, Geralt reflects on his own role in this suffering. He is, after all, a product of a world that values survival above all else. His detachment, his refusal to engage with the larger moral struggles around him, is both a coping mechanism and a source of personal conflict. Despite the grimness of their reality, there is a sense of camaraderie that unites Geralt, Milva, Zoltan, and the rest of the group. They are survivors in a world that seems intent on breaking them. Their shared mission to find Ciri is a constant thread that keeps them moving forward, even as the world around them collapses. The loyalty they share, despite their differences, is a testament to the strength of their bond. It is a bond that transcends the war and the monsters they face. In many ways, their quest is not just about finding Ciri. It is about holding on to something pure amidst the decay of everything else. In a world where everything seems to be falling apart, their friendship is a fragile, yet vital, lifeline. The emotional core of Baptism of Fire lies not just in the quest to find Ciri, but in the journey of self-discovery that each of the characters undergoes. Geralt, in particular, is forced to confront the idea of fate and free will in ways he has never done before. His role as a witcher has always been defined by his ability to control his own destiny. But now, he finds himself caught in the web of forces beyond his control. His relationship with Milva, Zoltan, and his increasingly complicated feelings towards Ciri all challenge his sense of independence. The choices he makes in the face of these challenges will ultimately define not only his future, but the future of those he loves. As Geralt and his companions continue their journey through the war-torn lands, the grim reality of their quest becomes more apparent with each passing day. The weight of their mission to find Ciri, the child of destiny, who is both the key to the future and a symbol of hope for a world on the brink of collapse, presses heavily on them all. Yet, even as they struggle with the personal and external challenges of their journey, they cannot ignore the complex political landscape that surrounds them. In the midst of the chaos, Geralt's relationship with his companions continues to evolve. Milva, who had initially been a reluctant member of the group, becomes a more integral part of their journey. Her quiet strength, her dedication, and her growing sense of purpose in the face of an increasingly fractured world make her a stabilizing force for the group. Geralt, in turn, finds himself depending on her in ways he hadn't expected. Despite his initial reluctance to allow anyone too close, there is an undeniable bond forming between them. Milva's skills as an archer and her knowledge of the terrain are invaluable, but it is her empathy and understanding that become equally important. Milva's presence is a reminder of the goodness that can still exist in a world ravaged by war and destruction. And as their journey progresses, it becomes clear that her role in Geralt's life extends beyond that of a mere ally. Yet, even as the group grows closer, the dangers they face multiply. Monsters, both literal and metaphorical, lurk at every turn. The land is filled with dangerous creatures, and Geralt, as always, finds himself in the role of protector. His skills as a witcher are put to the test time and time again as he faces off against grotesque beasts, both human and non-human. These encounters are not merely physical battles, they are psychological ones as well. Geralt is forced to confront his own vulnerabilities as he navigates a world that seems intent on breaking him down. Every fight, every monster he slays, serves as a reminder of the internal struggle he faces. The world is full of violence and hatred, and it threatens to consume him. As they move through the war-torn landscape, the group encounters several factions, each with its own agenda. Some are sympathetic to their cause, while others view them as little more than pawns in a larger game of politics and war. The war itself, with its shifting alliances and power struggles, adds another layer of complexity to the journey. Nilfgaard's continued expansion threatens to swallow the Northern Kingdoms whole, and the people caught in the middle are left to suffer. Geralt, a man who has always distanced himself from politics, finds himself increasingly drawn into the conflict, though he remains wary of choosing sides. The complexities of the war are not lost on him, but his primary focus remains on Ciri. Yet, even as he clings to his goal, the reality of the war's impact on the world around him is impossible to ignore. Every day that passes without finding Ciri is another day that the world slips further into chaos. One of the most significant moments in their journey occurs when they encounter a band of mercenaries led by a man named Mousesack. Though Mousesack is initially an ally, his motivations are not entirely clear. His presence serves as a reminder of the morally ambiguous nature of the world they inhabit. In this world, alliances are often fragile, and betrayal is never far behind. Mousesack's involvement with the group raises questions about loyalty and trust, and it forces Geralt to confront the idea that, in a world so consumed by war, loyalty may be as fleeting as the wind. As they continue their journey, the group faces ever greater challenges. They cross paths with rogue sorcerers, military commanders, and other figures who are all too aware of the stakes of the war. Yet, despite the danger, Geralt remains steadfast in his belief that his role in this conflict is to protect Ciri, and by extension, preserve some semblance of peace in a world that seems determined to destroy itself. The emotional toll of this journey begins to weigh heavily on him, and his internal struggle deepens. He is no longer just a witcher, a monster hunter, but a man torn between the world he knows and the larger forces that are pushing him toward a destiny he cannot control. Meanwhile, the political situation grows more unstable by the day. The Northern Kingdoms, once a united front, against Nilfgaard's advances are now fragmented, with individual rulers vying for power and the survival of their own territories. The once mighty alliances that held the kingdoms together are breaking down, and the reality of a world at war is more apparent than ever. Geralt, who has always been an outsider to the politics of the realm, is forced to confront the reality that his quest for Ciri is not an isolated endeavor. It is a part of a larger struggle that will shape the future of the world. The war is not just a backdrop to the story. It is an integral part of the narrative, and its consequences will have far-reaching implications for all of the characters involved. Despite the increasing dangers and the uncertainty of their future, the group presses on. The bond between Geralt, Milva, Zoltan, and the rest of their companions continues to strengthen as they face the challenges of their journey together. It is clear that, despite the chaos and destruction that surrounds them, they remain united by a common purpose, a shared commitment to finding Ciri and ensuring her safety. This shared goal serves as a beacon of hope in an otherwise hopeless world. It is their reason for continuing, even when everything else seems to be falling apart. In the midst of the war, personal relationships become more complex, and the emotional stakes of their journey increase. Geralt's bond with Milva grows deeper, but so does his internal conflict. He is a man caught between his sense of duty and his growing feelings for someone who is not just a companion, but a friend, someone he has come to rely on. Yet, in a world as broken as the one they inhabit, the question of whether love and loyalty can survive is never far from his mind. The emotional toll of the journey, coupled with the constant threat of danger, forces Geralt to reevaluate his own beliefs and motivations. Is it enough to survive in a world like this, or must he find a way to stand for something greater? These questions loom over him, even as the group continues their search for Ciri. As they push further into the unknown, the stakes grow higher and the challenges more insurmountable. Geralt's journey is one of survival, but it is also one of self-discovery. The road ahead is uncertain, and the only thing that remains clear is his commitment to finding Ciri, no matter the cost. In this war-ravaged world, it is the bonds he shares with his companions that will ultimately define him, even as the world around them threatens to consume them all. As Geralt and his companions continue their journey across the war-torn landscape, the toll of their quest becomes more evident. The journey is no longer just about finding Ciri. It has transformed into a fight for survival in a world that is unraveling. The stakes are higher than ever, and the path is fraught with both external dangers and the internal struggles that each of them faces. Yet through it all, the bond between Geralt, Milva, Zoltan, and the rest of the group becomes a source of strength. Together, they form a tenuous yet resolute family, each of them carrying their own burdens while pushing forward toward their shared goal. Milva's role within the group continues to evolve. As the group's archer and guide, her skills are indispensable. But what stands out more and more is her resilience, both physical and emotional. Despite the brutal realities of war, Milva is a source of quiet strength. She has her own personal demons, but as the journey progresses, her resolve grows stronger. Her connection with Geralt also deepens, though it remains complex. Geralt, ever the solitary figure, is slowly learning to rely on others. There's a vulnerability to him that he doesn't often show, but with Milva, he finds someone who not only shares his burdens, but also challenges him to confront his own emotional walls. They are both survivors in a world where survival often means losing pieces of yourself. Zoltan, the dwarf, provides a much-needed sense of levity amid the darkness of their journey. His sense of humor and larger-than-life personality are a stark contrast to Geralt's stoic demeanor. But in many ways, he is the heart of the group. Zoltan's unwavering loyalty to his friends and his no-nonsense attitude are invaluable, especially when tensions run high. He reminds Geralt of the importance of camaraderie and trust, and he helps to keep the group grounded when the weight of their mission threatens to crush them. While Zoltan is not without his own sense of danger, he's no stranger to violence and combat. His presence offers a sense of stability, a reminder that even in the most chaotic of times, there is room for joy, for humor, and for lighthearted moments. As their journey continues, they encounter more dangerous enemies and terrifying creatures, both of the human and monstrous variety. The war is not just an abstract force in the background. It is real, and it is everywhere. Every town they pass through bears the scars of battle, and every person they meet has been touched by the horrors of the conflict. The group encounters a brutal band of Nilfgaardian soldiers, and for Geralt, this is a reminder that the war has become inescapable. The clash between the northern kingdoms and Nilfgaard is now a central theme in their travels, and it is a battle with no clear victor in sight. Geralt, as always, seeks to avoid becoming embroiled in the politics of war. But the reality is that war is something that touches everyone, whether they want it to or not. While the group continues to face external threats, they also find themselves grappling with internal tensions. The longer their journey stretches on, the more it becomes apparent that each of them is carrying something heavy. For Geralt, the weight of Ciri's absence is a constant presence. He is consumed by guilt and uncertainty, doubts about whether he is truly doing the right thing by continuing this pursuit, doubts about whether Ciri even wants to be found. The fear that he may never see her again looms over him like a dark cloud, and his internal conflict grows as the days pass. He is a man who has always defined himself by his actions, by his ability to confront monsters and dangers head-on. Yet now, faced with an enemy that is not tangible, something he cannot fight with his sword, Geralt is forced to confront the limits of his power. There are no monsters to slay in this part of the world, no demons to vanquish, only the slow, grinding reality of a world that is coming apart at the seams. For Milva, the journey is also a test of her strength. Her past is one filled with trauma and loss, and although she is a skilled fighter, the emotional toll of the journey is beginning to wear on her. There are moments when her resolve falters, when the weight of the war and the horrors they've witnessed threaten to break her. Yet, in those moments, it is her connection with the others, especially Geralt, that gives her the strength to carry on. It is clear that Milva is not just fighting for Ciri or for the success of their mission. She is fighting for herself, to prove that she can survive in a world that has already taken so much from her. Her relationship with Geralt continues to deepen, and there are moments where their shared vulnerability creates an unspoken understanding between them. Both of them are damaged in their own ways, yet together, they form a tentative, fragile bond that holds them together through the darkest moments. The dynamic between the group members also evolves as they continue their journey. there is a growing recognition of the importance of unity, of standing together despite the challenges they face. This sense of solidarity is what keeps them moving forward when it seems like all hope is lost. It is not just the strength of their weapons or their skills that keeps them alive. It is the strength of their relationships, the deepening trust they have in each other. In a world where betrayal is common and loyalty is a rare commodity, the bond they share is a precious thing. Yet, even as they become more united, they are also becoming more aware of the dangers that lie ahead. The forces arrayed against them are formidable, and it is clear that the war is far from over. Nilfgaard's ambitions show no sign of waning, and the northern kingdoms are divided and weakened. Geralt's quest to find Ciri becomes ever more complicated as the political landscape shifts beneath his feet. It is no longer just a matter of finding her. It is a matter of finding her before those who would use her for their own ends do. The tension between these competing forces builds as the group draws closer to the heart of the conflict, and they must decide how much they are willing to sacrifice to protect what they love. As the journey progresses, the weight of their mission grows heavier. Each step they take brings them closer to Ciri, but it also brings them closer to the inevitable confrontation with the forces of war. Geralt, Milva, Zoltan, and the rest of the group must grapple with their own fears and doubts, as well as the ever-present dangers that lurk on the road ahead. They are a family, bound together by a shared purpose, but also by the understanding that in this world, nothing is certain and everything is fleeting. Their journey will not just determine Ciri's fate, but their own as well. And in the end, they will all have to decide what they are willing to fight for and what they are willing to lose. As Geralt and his companions move deeper into the heart of the war-torn lands, the weight of their quest continues to bear down on them. The once clear-cut goal of finding Ciri has become an increasingly difficult and complex mission. The group is no longer just navigating through a dangerous world. They are caught in the middle of a war that shows no signs of relenting. The northern kingdoms are fragmented and struggling against the overwhelming might of Nilfgaard, and it becomes evident that the outcome of the war will not only shape the future of these kingdoms, but also the fates of Geralt, Ciri, and everyone involved in their search. Geralt, though still driven by his unyielding determination to find Ciri, has begun to confront the brutal reality of what his pursuit means. He is no longer just a monster hunter. He is someone caught in the crossfire of a war that has affected everyone, even those who do not wish to fight. It is a war that will shape everything he has known, and the sense of powerlessness that comes with this realization begins to gnaw at him. No matter how many monsters he slays or how many battles he wins, there are forces at play that he cannot control. His sense of isolation deepens as he grapples with this truth. And yet, there is a strange sense of clarity in his recognition that this is no longer just about him. It's about something much larger than himself. Ciri, the child he has come to see as his own, is the key to something far more important than just their personal bond. Milva's journey has also taken on a new dimension. As a survivor of unspeakable horrors, she has always carried her pain with her, but it is through her bond with Geralt that she begins to confront it in a more profound way. The journey has allowed her to rediscover a sense of purpose that was lost to her for a long time. Though she has always been a fierce and skilled warrior, it is her emotional growth that defines her role in the group. Geralt is not the only one carrying the weight of their mission. Milva, too, has her own personal stake in the journey, and with each step, she becomes more determined to survive, not only for Ciri, but for herself. Her personal struggle, though quieter than Geralt's, is no less important, and the moments where she allows herself to be vulnerable and open to the group are significant. Her connection with Geralt deepens, and there is a quiet, unspoken understanding between them that is based not just on survival, but on mutual respect. Zoltan, the dwarf who has proven himself time and again as both a warrior and a source of humor, continues to be an indispensable part of the group. His loyalty to Geralt remains unwavering, and his ability to lift the spirits of those around him becomes even more vital as the journey drags on. In a world filled with constant threats and moral ambiguity, Zoltan offers a much-needed anchor to the group. He is not consumed by the larger political conflicts. His loyalty lies with his friends, and that simple, unwavering commitment to those he cares about offers a source of stability. His wit and larger-than-life personality provide moments of levity in an otherwise grim world, and it's clear that his friendship with Geralt is one built on years of shared battles and mutual respect. But Zoltan's jovial nature hides a deeper understanding of the war. As a dwarf, he is no stranger to the prejudices and struggles that come with living in a world where people like him are often overlooked or looked down upon. He has always been an outsider, but it's this very sense of being on the margins that allows him to see things more clearly. He understands that the war is not just about winning battles, it's about survival for those who have no place in the larger conflict. Zoltan's loyalty to Geralt and his commitment to the mission are driven by a sense of moral clarity that is often lacking in others. In the midst of the chaos, Zoltan remains grounded, and it is his steady presence that gives the group a sense of continuity in a world where everything is shifting beneath them. As they continue their journey, the group faces ever more perilous obstacles. The war continues to ravage the land, and the threat of Nilfgaard looms ever larger. They encounter new enemies, both human and monstrous, and their path becomes even more treacherous. Geralt's instincts as a witcher are tested to their limits, and the harshness of the world around him forces him to make increasingly difficult choices. He is no longer fighting for survival alone. He is fighting for something far more significant, the future of the world itself. This realization hits him like a wave, and the burden of that knowledge weighs heavily on him. The more he learns about the forces at play, the more he is confronted by the fragility of the world he is trying to protect. For Milva, the dangers of the journey are a constant reminder of the life she left behind. Her resilience is pushed to the breaking point as the journey continues, and there are moments when her resolve falters. Yet, through it all, she remains a vital part of the group, her strength of character helping to pull the others through their darkest moments. Her quiet bond with Geralt grows, though it remains a fragile thing. She is still learning to trust, still struggling with the ghosts of her past, but she is also learning that survival is not just about fighting, it is about learning to let others in. Her growth as a person, as both a warrior and a human being, is one of the most compelling aspects of the journey. The dynamics within the group continue to evolve as they learn to rely on each other in new ways. While their shared goal of finding Ciri is what initially brought them together, it is their individual struggles and growth that define the strength of their bond. Geralt Milva, Zoltan, and the rest of the group have become more than just traveling companions. They are a family, bound together not just by their mission, but by their shared understanding of what it means to survive in a world where nothing is certain. The war continues to press down on them, and the sense of impending doom hangs heavy in the air. As they push forward, each step feels more like a desperate scramble for survival. The world around them is crumbling, and they must decide how far they are willing to go to achieve their goal. The choices they make will shape their future, and it becomes clear that the path they are on will not end without great sacrifice. With every moment that passes, the tension grows, and the stakes are raised. What started as a search for a lost child has become something much more, something that may very well determine the fate of the entire world. As Geralt and his companions move forward, the looming threat of Nilfgaard continues to cast a shadow over everything. The war has taken on a new level of intensity, with each step forward seeming to bring them closer to an uncertain, dangerous future. The landscape around them is not only scarred by conflict, but also by the toll it takes on the people caught in the middle, villagers, soldiers, and mercenaries alike. Geralt, though weary from the long journey, remains focused on his mission. His heart beats for Ciri, the girl he's sworn to protect, and yet he is becoming increasingly aware of the weight of everything around him. Each passing day brings new challenges, and it is clear that the war isn't just an external conflict. It is one that runs deep, right to the heart of his companions, and to the core of what it means to survive in a world constantly at war. The group's journey has taken them across desolate plains and into war-torn villages, where the effects of Nilfgaard's advance are evident in the suffering of the common folk. At the same time, Geralt and his companions must navigate the complexity of their personal relationships, which have deepened as they've spent more time together. Milva, who once fought mostly for herself, has now found a sense of kinship in the group, and her growing connection with Geralt has changed the dynamics within the party. There's an unspoken bond between them, built not only on shared hardship, but also on mutual respect. Milva, who had long been skeptical of Geralt's world, is beginning to see the man behind the Witcher. She's beginning to understand the depth of his commitment to those he loves, and to the people he's sworn to protect. Yet, the scars of her past are still with her, and the emotional toll of this journey weighs heavily on her. For Zoltan, the dwarf warrior, the bond with his companions is also shifting in unexpected ways. He remains the group's humor and heart, often lifting spirits with his boisterous laughter and mischievous grin. However, beneath this exterior is a man who is acutely aware of the state of the world around him. Zoltan, like Milva, knows that the stakes have escalated, and his loyalty to Geralt and the others is not just born of friendship, it is a matter of survival. Zoltan's deep understanding of the world and the ways in which different races and kingdoms interact gives him a unique perspective on the war. He's not just a soldier or a wanderer. He is someone who understands the subtle political dynamics of the world. As Nilfgaard's presence grows stronger, Zoltan's loyalty becomes even more crucial, as he serves not only as a fighter, but also as a voice of reason in moments of tension and uncertainty. As their journey unfolds, the group faces more and more dangers, some of which are human and others, which are far darker and more sinister. They encounter monsters that seem to have a life of their own, their evil energy lingering in the air like a dark cloud. But it's the human forces, the soldiers of Nilfgaard and the mercenaries that follow in their wake, that prove to be the most dangerous of all. As the group moves through the war-torn lands, they find themselves caught between these two worlds, the supernatural horrors of the monsters they know, and the brutal, political realities of the human world. One of the more compelling aspects of their journey is the tension between the personal and the political. Geralt, Milva, and Zoltan each have their own reasons for fighting, their own motivations, but they cannot escape the larger war that has engulfed their world. The choices they make are no longer just about survival. They are about aligning themselves with forces that are far beyond their control. The conflict between Nilfgaard and the Northern Kingdoms is a war that touches every aspect of their existence, whether they like it or not. The war also brings out the darker sides of the characters, forcing them to confront their own vulnerabilities. Geralt, for instance, is faced with the stark reality that his skills as a witcher, though formidable, are not enough to guarantee his success. He is only human, and despite his enhanced abilities, there are limits to what he can do. This realization is sobering for Geralt, whose identity has always been tied to his status as a witcher. He's always prided himself on his ability to survive, to fight, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But as he faces the mounting horrors of war, he is confronted with the knowledge that there are larger forces at play that no one, no matter how skilled, can control. Milva's own struggles mirror Geralt's. She has always been someone who prided herself on her independence, her ability to survive on her own terms. But as the journey grows more dangerous and the war takes its toll, Milva begins to confront her own weaknesses. She's forced to face the fact that she cannot do everything alone, and that relying on others may be the key to survival. Her relationship with Geralt becomes more complex as they work together, facing not only external threats, but also their own personal demons. Milva's growth, both as a fighter and as a person, is one of the most significant arcs in this part of their journey. Zoltan, too, is faced with his own personal battles. Though he remains the heart of the group, there are moments when his light-hearted nature falters, and the weight of the war becomes too much to bear. Zoltan's understanding of the larger political landscape only makes him more aware of the dangers that lie ahead, and his loyalty to Geralt and the others becomes even more crucial. His ability to lift the spirits of the group is invaluable, but it is his quiet wisdom that proves to be just as important in these dark times. Despite the external and internal pressures that the group faces, there are also moments of fleeting peace. These moments are rare, but they offer a sense of respite in an otherwise harsh world. In the quiet moments, the characters reflect on their lives, their choices, and what the future holds for them. These are the moments when the group is most human, and it is in these moments that their bonds grow even stronger. The friendships and alliances forged during this journey are built not just on necessity, but on shared experiences, respect, and an understanding of the weight they all carry. The world they inhabit is unforgiving and brutal, but it is also one where the strength of human connection can offer a glimmer of hope in the darkest of times. For Geralt, Milva, Zoltan, and the others, the war may be raging around them, but it is the bonds they share that will ultimately determine their survival. In a world where nothing is certain and the future is always in question, it is the relationships between these characters that become the greatest source of strength. Together, they face a future that is uncertain, but they do so with the knowledge that they are not alone. The path ahead remains unclear, but the choices they make along the way will define their fate. As the journey presses forward, the tension surrounding Geralt and his companions grows ever more palpable. With each step, they draw closer to the heart of the conflict, where their roles in the grand scheme of things will soon be tested in ways none of them can predict. Nilfgaard's army looms large, its shadow spreading over the land as the war drags on. And the group finds themselves navigating not only the physical dangers of the battlefield, but also the shifting allegiances that threaten to pull them apart. Geralt, ever the reluctant hero, remains fixated on the one thing that keeps him going through it all, Ciri. The bond they share is deep, and his unwavering determination to find her, to protect her, burns brighter than any fear or uncertainty he faces. Yet, as they near the heart of Nilfgaard's reach, Geralt is confronted with a brutal reality. The war is more complex than he could have ever imagined. The political machinations of the North, the betrayal from unexpected quarters, and the shifting tides of power make his personal mission seem almost futile in the face of such overwhelming chaos. Milva, too, is forced to confront her own role in this conflict. The journey has transformed her, pulling her away from the independent, self-reliant person she once was, and molding her into someone who must rely on her companions in ways she never thought possible. Yet, the internal struggle she faces is not just about relying on others. It's about understanding her place in a world that feels increasingly fragmented. Her growth, as both a fighter and as an individual, is tested by her interactions with the group, particularly Geralt. The unspoken understanding between them becomes more pronounced. And yet, there remains a distance that neither of them can fully bridge. It's not a distance born of animosity, but of the unspoken weight of what's at stake. For Milva, it's about reconciling the strong-willed independence she has always held dear with the reality that she may not be able to face this war alone. Zoltan, ever the optimist, tries to inject some humor into the increasingly grim atmosphere. Yet even he cannot escape the shadow of the war. Though his outward demeanor remains bright, there is an underlying sadness that's beginning to take root within him. The dwarf, with his deep understanding of the politics of the war, sees the bigger picture, and it's one that offers little hope. Despite his usual bravado, Zoltan knows that the war is shifting the balance of power, and it is not one that favors the North. The personal stakes of this journey begin to hit home for him as well, particularly as the group continues to face increasing numbers of Nilfgaard's soldiers. The group's struggle is not just against Nilfgaard's forces. It is against a world that seems intent on breaking them. They face treacherous terrain, harsh weather, and scarcity of food, but it is the psychological toll that proves to be the most difficult to bear. The weight of war is heavy, not just in the battles fought on the front lines, but in the isolation it breeds. The constant threat of death, the uncertainty of tomorrow, and the emotional scars that war leaves behind slowly chip away at the group's morale. And yet, despite all this, there are moments of beauty, brief flashes of joy and camaraderie that provide a reminder of what they are fighting for. These moments are rare but precious, like the glimmer of light that cuts through the darkness. But those moments, as fleeting as they are, cannot change the harsh reality of the journey. As the group presses on, Geralt's determination to find Ciri becomes even more resolute. He knows that he is not just facing an external enemy, he is facing the realities of his own nature, the price of being a witcher, the burdens of the choices he has made, and the unrelenting power of fate. The war may rage around him, but it is Ciri and the promise he made to her that holds his focus. This internal battle is just as pressing as the one he faces on the battlefield, and it is one that is beginning to take its toll on him. Geralt's inner turmoil is mirrored in the external challenges the group faces. The further they venture, the more the lines between good and evil blur. The enemy is not just Nilfgaard and its soldiers. It is the very nature of the war itself. A war that turns everything upside down and forces even the most hardened individuals to question what they stand for. Geralt, Milva, Zoltan, and the others are all forced to confront their own personal demons and their place in the world. It's a world that has no clear moral compass, where loyalty is often tested and betrayal lurks in the shadows. Milva, in particular, struggles with her role as part of a team. She has always been a loner, someone who relied on herself above all else. But now, as she sees her companions faltering, as they all struggle with the weight of what lies ahead, Milva realizes that she cannot continue to carry the burden on her own. The realization is both humbling and empowering, but it also forces her to confront the idea that there is strength in unity. There is strength in the bonds she shares with Geralt, Zoltan, and the others. But as the war continues, there are moments where she doubts whether this unity will be enough to overcome the tide of destruction that seems inevitable. Zoltan, ever the pragmatic one, tries to keep the group grounded, reminding them of the larger picture. He sees the war for what it is, a conflict that has the potential to tear apart everything they hold dear. But even Zoltan knows that there is little room for optimism in the face of such overwhelming odds. The political and military situation grows bleaker with each passing day. And despite their best efforts, the group is being drawn deeper into a conflict they may have no power to stop. As the stakes rise, the group's journey takes them into ever more dangerous territory. They face monsters both literal and metaphorical, as the lines between ally and enemy blur. The forces they face are not just those of Nilfgaard. They are the forces of war itself, chaos, fear, and destruction. And yet, despite all of this, the group persists. They push forward because, in the end, they have no choice. They are bound by their mission, their loyalty to each other, and the need to survive. The shifting alliances, the increasingly violent encounters, and the ever-present shadow of Nilfgaard's advance make it clear that the journey ahead will only grow more treacherous. With each step forward, Geralt and his companions find themselves questioning not just the world around them, but the very purpose of their journey. The war has become not just a battle for survival, but a test of character, of what it means to hold on to one's humanity in a world that seems to be rapidly losing its own. The journey of Geralt and his companions takes yet another dark turn as they are forced to confront not just the physical enemies around them, but the internal struggles that have been brewing since the moment they set out. The weight of the world is beginning to press down on them all, and each member of the group grapples with their own role in this war, as well as their place in the world. Despite their resilience, the effects of the war are unmistakable, and the more they push forward, the the more they realize that their journey may ultimately be for nothing. With each passing day, they encounter new dangers, both human and monstrous, that threaten to tear them apart. But through it all, one thing remains constant: Geralt's unwavering determination to find Ciri. Geralt, ever the reluctant hero, continues his journey toward his adopted daughter, the girl who has become both his reason for living and his greatest fear. But with every new challenge, Geralt begins to question whether he can truly protect her. He is a witcher, a monster hunter by trade, but even his strength and skill seem inadequate in the face of what lies ahead. The closer he gets to Nilfgaard's heart, the more he realizes how deep the corruption runs. This war is not just about borders or power, it's about survival, loyalty, and sacrifice. Geralt's connection to Ciri is more than just familial, it is personal, and the fear of losing her continues to haunt him. Milva, who has grown into one of the most reliable members of the group, is now forced to confront her own demons. Once an independent tracker, she finds herself depending on others in ways she never imagined. Her connection to Geralt deepens, though the bond is never fully explained, and there's an unspoken understanding between them. They are both survivors, marked by the cruelty of the world around them. But for Milva, the journey is becoming not just about survival, it's about finding meaning in the chaos. The war has irrevocably changed her, forcing her to reconsider her own beliefs and the life she once led. Yet, despite her growing connection to the group, she still struggles with the idea of loyalty and trust. The uncertainty of the future makes her question her place in all of this. Zoltan, the dwarf whose humor and straightforwardness have been an anchor in their turbulent journey, also begins to show cracks in his facade. Zoltan's loyalty to his friends is unshakable, yet he knows that the forces they are up against are too powerful to defeat through strength alone. He sees the war for what it truly is, an unforgiving, brutal reality that consumes everything in its path. Even his attempts to lighten the mood are becoming increasingly hollow, as he too begins to feel the psychological weight of the endless conflict. Still, Zoltan pushes forward, ever the pragmatist, hoping against hope that there is still a chance for victory, though he is no longer sure what that victory would even look like. The emotional toll of the war is beginning to affect the group in deeper, more profound ways. As they traverse through increasingly dangerous lands, they encounter not just physical enemies, but psychological ones. The constant pressure of being on the run, the fear of what the next day will bring, and the haunting memories of battles past begin to erode their spirits. The group is no longer just fighting external forces, they are fighting to hold onto their very humanity. The horrors of war, the betrayal from unexpected quarters, and the ever-present shadow of death force each of them to confront their own vulnerabilities. For Geralt, the realization is becoming impossible to ignore. This war is not just about the fate of kingdoms, but about the future of the people he cares for. His commitment to Ciri remains his greatest driving force, but he begins to realize that his path forward may not lead to a happy ending. The choices he is forced to make are increasingly impossible. Should he continue down this path, knowing the cost, or should he abandon his mission altogether? The emotional burden of his role weighs heavily on him, and it becomes clear that even the mighty Witcher cannot shoulder this burden forever. As the war rages on, the group is faced with increasingly difficult choices. The threat of Nilfgaard is ever present, and and the danger they face seems to be growing with every step. The political alliances that once seemed solid begin to fray, and even the smallest mistake could lead to disaster. It is clear that survival is no longer guaranteed, and each member of the group must grapple with what they are willing to sacrifice in order to protect one another and achieve their goals. The lines between right and wrong begin to blur, and the choices they make become even more morally complex. Milva, struggling with her own internal conflict, finds herself caught between her loyalty to Geralt and her desire for a more peaceful existence. She has seen firsthand the brutality of the world they live in and knows that there is no easy escape from it. Yet, the toll it has taken on her is beginning to show, and she must come to terms with the fact that the world will never be as simple as it once seemed. Her journey is not just one of survival, but of self-discovery. She is learning that in this world, sometimes the greatest strength lies not in fighting, but in knowing when to walk away. Zoltan, too, struggles with his place in this war. He is a warrior at heart, and the thought of surrendering to the overwhelming force of Nilfgaard is a bitter pill to swallow. But as the stakes grow higher, he begins to see that there are things worth fighting for beyond the battlefield. His bond with Geralt, Milva, and the rest of the group is one of the few constants in his life, and it is something he refuses to let go of. Still, the pressure is mounting, and it becomes increasingly difficult for Zoltan to maintain his optimistic outlook in the face of such overwhelming odds. The war, with all its uncertainty and violence, continues to shape the group in unexpected ways. The emotional strain they are under is palpable, and even the moments of camaraderie that they share offer only temporary respite from the chaos around them. The journey ahead is uncertain, and the path to Ciri remains fraught with danger. But through it all, there is a sense of purpose that continues to drive them forward. They may not know what lies ahead, but they know that they must continue moving forward, if only to give meaning to the sacrifices they have already made. As Geralt, Milva, Zoltan, and the others continue their journey, they are forced to confront not just the physical dangers of war, but the emotional toll that it takes on them. They are all shaped by their experiences, and each step brings them closer to understanding the true cost of the war that has consumed their world. But as they press on, there remains a glimmer of hope, no matter how faint, that they can still find a way to emerge from this conflict, not unscathed, but still intact. As the journey nears its inevitable conclusion, the weight of everything Geralt, his companions, and those they've encountered has experienced settles heavily upon them. The toll of war, the physical and emotional scars they've all carried, becomes undeniable. The final stretch of their arduous path is as fraught with peril as the beginning, yet it is laced with deeper meaning. In the midst of all the chaos and destruction, there are moments where the truth of their relationships and the costs of their actions become more apparent. The road ahead has never seemed more uncertain, but for Geralt, there is a clarity that finally cuts through the fog. Through the chaos and brutality of war, Geralt has always remained focused on his ultimate goal, finding Ciri. This fierce determination has been the driving force that has kept him going even when all seemed lost, and it continues to propel him forward, despite the overwhelming odds against him. The journey has been one of both physical and emotional sacrifice, and though Geralt's heart aches at times, it is that same heart that keeps him moving forward. He has fought, bled, and lost so much, but there is still a flicker of hope, a light that burns despite the encroaching darkness. The journey to find Ciri is not just a quest for a father to reunite with his daughter. It is also the story of Geralt's internal battle with who he is, what he believes, and how he can reconcile the choices he has made. The Witcher's existence has always been defined by the world around him, a world that sees him as a monster, an outsider. But through his love for Ciri, Geralt has finally begun to embrace his own humanity. The war has stripped him of his illusions, leaving only the raw truth about who he is and the people he values most. Milva, who has transformed throughout this journey from a solitary and hardened individual to a vital part of Geralt's crew, has her own reckoning. Her bond with Geralt is unmistakable, and though she harbors her own fears and doubts, she has become a steadfast presence in his life. There are times when her own motivations clash with the circumstances around them, but her loyalty and willingness to fight for the greater good remain unwavering. As the war rages on, Milva grapples with the shifting nature of her place in the world. She has come to realize that her choices, both on and off the battlefield, are not just about survival. They are about creating a future where people can live freely, without the shackles of oppression and fear. Zoltan, the dwarf who has been a beacon of humor and practical wisdom throughout their journey, continues to stand by Geralt's side, though even he begins to feel the weight of the conflict pressing on him. His once unshakable confidence is now tempered by the deepening horror of the war. He has seen too much loss. Too many people sacrifice their lives in the name of a cause that seems increasingly senseless. Yet, through it all, Zoltan never loses sight of what's most important: friendship, loyalty, and honor. Even in the face of despair, he continues to provide the strength and humor that his friends so desperately need. In these final moments of their journey, the intensity of the emotional stakes increases. Geralt, Milva, and Zoltan, along with the others who have traveled with them, are forced to make difficult decisions, choices that will forever alter the course of their lives. As they edge closer to Nilfgaard's stronghold, they know that this war will leave nothing untouched. There will be no winners, only survivors. The political intrigue, the betrayals, and the shifting allegiances all come to a head in this final act. Their bonds are tested as never before, with each character's resolve put to the ultimate test. For Geralt, the struggle has always been about balancing his duty as a Witcher with his desire to protect those he loves. But in this final stretch, the realization settles in that his personal sacrifice might be the only way to achieve the greater good. He faces impossible choices, ones that no one, least of all him, could ever have predicted. But through it all, he refuses to give up on Ciri. His love for her is not just that of a father to his daughter, but that of someone who understands the fragility of life, of family, and of hope. Geralt's journey has never been about simple heroism. It's about love, loss, and the complexities of being human in a world that often feels devoid of both. For Milva, this moment is also a point of reckoning. Her growth throughout the story has been profound, and now, in the final act, she must confront the reality of what it means to fight for something greater than herself. Her connection to Geralt is solidified, not by words, but by actions. The choice to stand beside him, to fight alongside him despite the emotional cost, is a testament to the kind of person she has become. It is no longer just about survival. It's about making sure that the next generation has a chance to live in a better world. For Milva, that world includes Ciri, and she is willing to sacrifice everything to ensure that the girl has the future she deserves. Zoltan's evolution is perhaps the most bittersweet. His loyalty and steadfast nature have been the glue that has held the group together, but even he cannot escape the reality of what the war has wrought. Zoltan's optimism, once a source of hope, now feels like a memory, a reminder of a time when life felt simpler. But in the face of death and destruction, Zoltan remains the heart of the group, a constant reminder of the values they all hold dear. His devotion to Geralt and the others is unshakable, even in the face of overwhelming loss. Zoltan embodies the spirit of resilience, showing that even in the darkest times, there is value in holding on to the things that matter. As Geralt and his companions prepare for the final confrontation, they realize that their struggle is not just one of physical endurance, but of emotional survival. The war has tested them all, but it has also forged them into something stronger, something more united. Their loyalty to each other, their unyielding will to protect what they love, is the one thing that has remained constant in a world that seems to be falling apart. The world they know may never be the same, but as they stand together, they understand that there is hope, even in the aftermath of destruction. Ultimately, the story of Baptism of Fire is not just about a battle between kingdoms. It's about the battle within each individual, about finding the strength to keep going despite insurmountable odds. It is about the deep, unspoken connections between people who have nothing but each other to rely on. The choices they make in these final moments will shape not only their destinies, but the future of the world itself. In conclusion, Baptism of Fire is a powerful exploration of the human spirit amid chaos, a testament to resilience, loyalty, and love in the face of overwhelming darkness. Through Geralt's journey and his interactions with the people around him, Andrzej Sapkowski crafts a narrative that is both an epic fantasy and an intimate character study. The war, the political intrigues, and the external threats that Geralt and his companions face serve as a backdrop to the personal battles each character must endure. Geralt's pursuit of Ciri is more than just a father's love for his daughter. It becomes a metaphor for the personal sacrifices one must make for the sake of those they care about, even when the odds seem insurmountable. It's about the search for meaning in a world that feels increasingly fragmented and uncertain. Through all the fighting and loss, Geralt and those around him come to realize that what truly matters are the bonds they share, and the enduring hope that, even in the darkest of times, there's a possibility for redemption, or at the very least, survival. The other characters, such as Milva, Zoltan, and the others, all undergo significant growth, moving from self-reliance to forming deep, unbreakable bonds that sustain them throughout their harrowing journey. Milva, once a solitary and hardened figure, finds a sense of purpose beyond mere survival, while Zoltan's unwavering loyalty remains a cornerstone of their group's strength. Their development mirrors the overarching theme of Baptism of Fire, that even in the most harrowing circumstances, people can change, grow, and find their place in a world that often seems hostile. Sapkowski's ability to weave complex political intrigue with deeply personal stories elevates Baptism of Fire beyond a typical fantasy narrative. His world is one where every action has consequences, where every choice leads to new challenges, and where survival isn't just about fighting the physical enemy, but about overcoming internal struggles. The characters are not merely pawns in a larger game. They are shaped by their experiences, and their growth is a key part of the book's emotional depth. The themes of sacrifice, loyalty, and identity are explored in profound ways. Geralt's internal struggle with his own identity as a Witcher, and what that means for his relationships, especially with Ciri, gives the story an emotional weight that resonates deeply. The pain of loss, the sacrifices made in the name of duty and love, and the unspoken understanding between Geralt and his companions form the core of this book. The trials they face, both physical and emotional, are a reflection of the trials that everyone must face in their own lives: the search for meaning, the struggle to protect those we love, and the courage to keep going when it seems like there's no end in sight. Ultimately, Baptism of Fire is about the journey of becoming. It's about the evolution of individuals and relationships, the forging of new identities in the face of adversity. Geralt's quest to find Ciri may be the central focus of the story, but it's the way that each character is changed by their experiences that gives the book its emotional power. It serves as a reminder that no one is immune to the scars of the world, but those scars also make us who we are. As the narrative closes, we are left with a sense of unfinished business, of battles still to be fought, but also with the understanding that the characters have grown stronger in ways that transcend the physical challenges they face. In the end, the true victory is not the defeat of an enemy, but the ability to continue forward, to fight for what matters, and to never lose sight of the things that give life meaning. Baptism of Fire is not just a story of survival. It is a meditation on what it means to live, to love, and to find hope in a world that can sometimes seem devoid of both.